Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Hello. Good morning, John. Boy, I was just going to keep saying hello. Good morning, Patrick. Happy Friday to you. Good morning, Dean. Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Royal Palms. Good morning to people in the background. How is everyone doing this fine Friday heading into another summer weekend? Then next week gets busy. So rest up. We got a lot going on next week. So, good morning, Harold. Good morning, Rick. How are you doing? The name switched back? All right. So, today, nothing. We got rig counts. We got nothing. Monday, actually, we got nothing. See, I'm going to look a little ahead. Can we look at IWM? Yes, we can. Hello, Charles. Next week, we got CPI, PPI. Why am I highlighting this? Because next week we also have earnings kickoff. I think it's Tuesday, bank earnings. All right. We got retail sales. So next week we cannot be slacking. And we got nice potential topping patterns in place because if they don't trigger, got to go with continued break moves higher. If they do trigger, be patient and wait for the pullback. Would I be aggressively shorting this market? No, I would not. I'd wait for the secondary reaction to see how that plays out. But we'll be here to discuss this. Did I say hello, Charles? All right. Amazon. I don't know why that's up. I mean, we still have July Prime days, but sales are way down. You got Netflix bouncing after pullback. But everything else is pretty red today. Flat to red. Let's take a look at the groups. Groups, everything down today. Consumer defensive, the least down. Most down financial. We've also been on a pretty big run over the last little bit, so there could be some profit taking. Fed watch still has 93%. 93%. Are they going to try to figure out some way to, since the Supreme Court said they can't fire Powell, but they're going to try to get him in for mismanagement of the Fed, going after this overrun on budget for the Fed renovation? Are they going to try to pull that one? Get him dismissed early for reason, and then put in the new Fed chair. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And then take interest rates to literally 1% overnight. We shall see. It'll be interesting coming up. Fear and greed, extreme greed. Schiller PE, 38.26 in this dirt cheap market. Does that matter in the short term? No, it matters in the long term. All right. So, hey, Dark Squeak, why are you shorting gold? No, math is not against you. Learn to trade with the trend, Dark Screen. What's the trend in gold still? Up. All right? That'd be like trying to short silver at this point. Stop trying to call a top, trying to wait for pullbacks and go with the trend. Please. Don't be a contrary trader. Now, double top in a declining market to where you've had a bounce, wonderful. Take it. Double bottom in an uptrending market, take it. Percent B buy pullback into the rotation zone, take it. You put the odds in your favor. Good morning, Martinez. All right, so yesterday qualified the S&P for a potential double top. Today down, but just hitting the 8 EMA, the rotation zone. All right, cycle's still headed down on the daily. Cycle's not even made a dent on the weekly. And look at this. You take a look at this weekly. This looks like, unless it has a pretty decent rally today, looks like we might get a 1 week, at least a red bar. Very overbought. Guess what I'll be watching next week? If we don't trigger the double, we get a pausing bar breakout higher. So I have setups either way going into next week. What would it look like to me? What would trigger the double? A close below 64.26.25. Early entry would be just a trade below there, but have to follow through with the close. What am I watching before then? 62.79.75. 62.80 roughly on a closing basis today, because then I'd be looking to possibly get short on Sunday to retest the 87.5 and possibly trigger this. Now, got to be nimble because CPI, PPI next week and earnings kicking off. But if we take out the highs next week, then I've got to go with the breakout with the intermediate target of 63.80. So, why? The trend is still up. We are overbought, but the trend is still up. Again, if this comes down, would I be aggressively shorting? There could be some short-term hedges, but the key level I'd be watching is 6,200. The first key level I'd be watching on a pullback closer to the bottom of the rotation zone. There you go. There's my roadmap. Everybody can go to sleep now. Nas, if you want shorter-term stuff for today, which you know my thoughts on Friday, we broke below a very key support zone, 62.90 area. It was already rejected from there. If we do get above there, I'm just trading 6,300, 6,302, and then major 6,313. Would this, if we rotate it back up and validate the double top yet? No, it would not. So there you go. If it breaks down below the 62.5 today, intraday, I'll be looking at 62, 68 area. NASDAQ also, it put it in potential double top on Wednesday. Yesterday, then we broke down. Breaking down yesterday, the trigger for that is a close below 22,779.75. So just remember 22,780. Again, on the weekly basis, looks like, unless we get a pretty decent rally, a pausing bar week. So same thing that states. Next week, if we break above this week's high, I'll be going with the breakout. If we triggered a potential double top, which isn't even confirmed yet, I'll be going with the pullback. The key pullback area for me is closer to this 22,600. Good morning, Ted. Maybe sometimes you could do a crazy classroom on how you look at investing separate from trading. Okay, I'll think about that. Doesn't mean that math is against you, Dark String. You're mixing up two things. If you can put the math in your favor, it's called probabilities and trade expectancy. If you don't have the probabilities in your favor and you don't have trade expectancy in your favor, you're not getting, which is based off reward to risk. So it's probability time reward to risk gives you trade expectancy. If you don't put that in your favor, the math is against you. And also, why are you trying to trade gold to the short side? Why would you do that? Just remind me, Martinez, let me get through some of these other things. So same thing there. Okay, key resistance here, if you're looking on something right now, right around 22,925 to 930. Actually, you could go even 22,925 to 22,940 as a key resistance into the open. Above there, I'd be closer to about 22,980. On a breakdown, next key thing, we're trading against a 50% harmonic, 22,847 area. The key for me is 22,780 for any front run for a breakdown. Also, that's the 62.5 and the potential trigger for the double top. Dow also has a double top. Key to trigger that would be a close below 44,422. Russell also has a potential double top. Yesterday's spike up did not invalidate the double. Again, what's key to me is first off a close below 2244. 2244. Other than that, we've still got the rotation into the smaller caps, and on another rotation up, if we do invalidate double, my target's still 2336 area. VIX, little pop today, but nothing substantial. DAX, we still have the potential lopsided double in play, but nowhere near triggering. Key pullback, if we start breaking, we've already tested the 8 EMA and this key high and this key low today. If we start breaking below about 24,275, I'm watching for 24,050, 24,000 to 2450. Yields starting to climb again, kissing the trend line goodbye, possibly. Now, the only thing that would shift my basis on yields, first off, in the short term, I'm going to be watching today if we close above 4.388. Then if we get into double top territory and then break below yesterday's low, then I'll shift my focus on yields. Other than that, I'm in up yield mode. Again, same thing essentially for the 30-year, watching for this unless we get into double top territory and then trigger. Crude. Not much to talk about. A reversal day back to key support yesterday and a little bounce today. Crude in the really short term closed below 62.5 right there, but in the bigger picture right down to here, did not. Wait, did it? No, it did not. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. Right now, being patient since we hit the first target, crude needs to really regain this 67.70 level for me. Being very patient with crude. Gold, we had the present be buy trigger yesterday. It was close. Again, it was aggressive and it was close. The high was 60. What was the high? 33.25.6. Need to close above that. Closed at 33.25.7. So it's triggered. And now we're following through. What's my next target? My next target area is between 33.85 to 33.91. Remember, gold, dark screen. If we did trigger the double top on a weekly basis, yeah, I could be interested in a short on a pullback or a hedge short because of longs, but we're still within the weekly rotation zone. These are hyper aggressive shorts. You're going to get your ass handed to you. Silver breaking out. Approaching, we actually just hit a minor harmonic. You see here, if I move that out of the way, the minor harmonic, and then the major harmonic 38.81. Okay? So, we don't have another great well, yeah, we do. We have 39.87 as the next key harmonic should it keep climbing. Right now, key support turns into about 37.20 to about 38. Would I be short in silver? No. So don't short silver. Dollar index, we're definitely getting a potential shift. Now, we are getting next week in the cycle top, so we could see a pullback. And also, euro is entering the bottom of a channeling pullback pattern. But we're definitely starting to see a shift in the dollar index, in my opinion. We are getting overbought. And we have very key resistance, especially this 50% harmonic, which we tapped yesterday and tapping again today. All right. So I'm going to be watching for at least a pause. And this would be the secondary reaction back down once we get a pullback in here next week, potentially. Therefore, I will be looking on how weak the dollar acts on the pullback, because that's going to be telling. That's what I'm talking about, secondary reactions. The secondary reaction, first thing I'm going to be watching is this trend line. And then we could be looking for a longer term shift in the dollar. Good morning, Coco. URA close less than 37. We'll take a look at URA. Just remind me. Euro, here's what I'm talking about. Close to the bottom of the rotation zone and bottom of the channel. So, with cycles getting to the bottom next week, would I be surprised to see a bounce in the euro? No. But I'm going to be looking then at the retracement harmonics, assuming we'll see how this looks next week. But these are the kind of things I'll be looking at next week. In case you don't want to tune in for some crazy reason. I'll be watching on the bounce between 117.50 and 117.68, roughly. Yen. All right. The yenster. Where are my lines? Where are my yen? Oh, that's the yield. Sorry. There's my yen. Paying attention now. Rejected from this prior price and now starting to move up. Separation in the rotation zone. 146.80 is key. Want to watch how it reacts to that today and then how it pulls back on the next pullback move. Let's get to Bitcoin first because Bitcoin broke out. We had the, by the way, the potential long-term double. No, not in play anymore. In the short term, why is that not? There we go. We had the corrective flag pattern breaking out, holding the trend line, and then the last couple of days breaking higher and hitting 118. 118.059 was the next key target. We don't have another major harmonic yet, unless you want to pull back to the next bigger corrective move, to that pausing bar and come up to here. We don't have a short-term target yet. So if this keeps running, you have really right around 119.900. Well, I'd just be looking at 120 and then 127. Back to the spiders, same thing. Spiders. Then forgot to flip this around. Still have potential double top in play. Same analysis as the S&P futures. But in the spiders, anything I'm going to be watching right down, pretty decent gap down, actually right around the 50% harmonic. The key area I'm looking at is 621.25 in the short term. That's the 62.5 harmonic. Would I be aggressively shorting this? No. This could be with a real quick hedge, but I'm looking for pullback plays into this rotation zone. My long-term win rates, I've said this before, my long-term win rates around 75%. My reward to risk, it depends on the markets, it's above 1.2. And that's without things that run. That's with short-term things, not with things that just keep running. Because therefore, I just let them run. In short term, to work on reward to risk to set up initial targets and stops, it's around 1.2. All right. Even stuff, traditionally, when I put out newsletters before, it's right around 75%, 74, 75, 76. And that's documented in stuff we've done in the past. And, I don't know where the unfiltered investor is now, but I know it's running above 70%. Which, you know what, from my perspective, that's a good win rate. Yeah, so don't trade contrary. I look at short setups unless we have major secondary reactions that make long-term topping patterns. I watch for pullbacks. Okay, that's why I watch the rotation zone. That's why I trade in the direction, especially in the short term, in the direction of the rotation zone. So I said the percentage drops if you're taking a double against the rotation zone. The Qs, same thing, potential double top in place. The key thing I'm looking for is 552.60 on a closing basis, especially today. What else do we have? I know we want an IWM. Just remind. Again, I like doing analysis on the Russell futures better than the IWM because there is no double top in the IWM. But just based off your long-term thing, any pullback that sits above 216 in the rotation zone, I'd be looking for still long entries. We are getting divergences, but that would be for a bounce and a secondary reaction because you still have the 62.5 rule in play. So, target still 226.67 area, which is a pretty key resistance area. And then if it does get above there, 235.83. Would I be shorting the Russell? No, because you rotation zone and you're above the 200. Are we overbought? Yeah. But if you're trying to short this, it's really scalpy and you got to be quick and nimble. So I'd be looking for a rotation zone in the IWM back down. How long does it take you to reach that level? I can't answer that question. I mean, I've been doing this for, I don't know when I hit those kind of numbers. But I've been doing this since 1992. That's a long time. I'm trying to teach everybody, why do I use these concepts? You can use whatever concepts you want. Why do I use a rotation zone? It keeps me on the right side of the trade. Why do I focus on key things like pullbacks in the rotation zone, percent B buys? Generally, they got good probabilities. Double tops, double bottoms have good probabilities. Now, double top against the rotation zone, you can do it aggressively, but you got to be really tight. Would I recommend that for beginners? No. No. Trade with, here's the deal, especially on a longer term basis, put on the weekly rotation zone and trade in the direction of it. Look in the IWM, here's your weekly. We got the first cross. Would I be shorting this? No, even a bigger pullback. Let's say it starts pulling back and you get a close below that 200, 216. Then I'm patient. What would I be looking for? I'd be looking something closer to about 210, 211 for a potential key break. The only thing, if we start closing below the rotation zone and below 207, I'd be, hey, okay, going to not be looking for pullbacks, going to be waiting for an established pattern because this could be over in the short term. Hold on, I got it. Could somebody put back in what URA? URA has not triggered the double yet. Okay? Still, because you see the gap below to confirm the double, no trigger yet. The trigger is still 36.70. Pre-market 36.70. That does not matter pre-market. And why? All right, here's something else. Would I aggressively short uranium? No. Why? It might be out of the way of the daily rotation zone, but look at the weekly. Look at the first target with a rising weekly. Guess what I'd be doing? Why would I not be shorting uranium? Look at the weekly. Look at the monthly. Look at any pullback here. We had a major multi-month top that was broken. Would I be shorting this sucker? No. What would I be looking for? Pullbacks in the weekly rotation zone. Would I be patient? Yeah. Weekly cycles at the top. But am I looking for a pullback to, like, say, $29? No. I'm looking for a pullback and then a resumptive buy pattern. I don't know how to make this clear to some people. I'm trying to see what other things people ask me to. Can I look at EMD? If I didn't get it, please put it back in the chat. Is it a double top? What's the rule for a double top? Again, go to the high, back to the low, potentially triggered. Did it get above the 75 harmonic? No. Then it's not a double top. Okay? And then you might wonder, well, if I'm looking for this to go down, what targets would I use if it's not a double top? Well, then I start looking at my key harmonic levels. If it's not a double top and we start breaking below, especially around $10, first area I'm watching is the bottom of the rotation zone. At least if I'm trying to go short this, which I would not recommend, I'd still be looking for pullbacks. And then bounce the plays. And then if it doesn't get through prior resistance again, or prior support becoming resistance, then I would be looking for short plays. However, if I continued to break down, what would be my target area? Well, we got the 50, we got the 50% harmonic, and we got the 200. That would be on any shorts for a longer term. If this what turned into a short, that's what I'd be looking for, because you can't use double targets. So, where else? Sometimes I day trade, but I turn day trades into swing. I only day trade when I'm generally looking for something that turns into a swing, that possible swing trade. Net, does it have a cup and handle that originated? Does net have a cup and handle? This being the cup. See, this is something, again, we had the inverse head and shoulders that went through all the targets, and then, let me undo this, hold on. Let me show you something else. So, did it also close above the 62.5? Did it keep, again, would I take something off here? But look at net. Pull back into the weekly rotation zone running higher. We did get a cup and handle. All right. Now, I'm paying attention to this in the short term. Okay. It does have a daily double, yes. So it's confirmed and not triggered yet. Would I be patient on net from any addings? Because also, look where it is in relationship to the weekly rotation zone. You got a potential double. Would I be aggressively adding here? No, I would not. Because you could easily return to the breakout level and slightly below that. I'd be keeping an eye on something around this second target, first to second target area with the rising 50. Why also? It's very overbought with a very strong divergence and weekly cycles rolling over. Another question that I get asked, do I magically buy at that level? No. Because look, could we turn into something like this? Yes. Especially with these high flyers. So what do I need? I need a pullback and then some kind of pattern to trigger a new entry. I don't just magically buy a price on a pullback. Yeah, you know your analysis is right there, Sterling. What else did I miss? Pi network. Which one did I use before? I thought which one did I use before? I forgot which one. There, that one I used. Nothing. Again, your double did not trigger, pulled back. What's the rotation zone? The rotation zone is still negative. It popped above it for one day, but what's the rotation zone? Still negative. It checked off the 87.5 rule twice. What would I need to happen before I got bullish on Pi Network? Unless there's a stronger bottoming pattern, I needed to show strength above about 0.63. Other than that, there's no strong bottoming pattern yet. And crypto's been running higher. All right, we already looked at Bitcoin and new highs. What else? Ethereum. What did Ethereum do? Broke out. Would I be chasing Ethereum? No. What's key now for me for Ethereum? To watch back this 2,800 level. See how it broke above this key resistance level right here, and we put on our harmonics. I'm really trying to teach people to help. I'm really showing you. Rotation zone now positive. You pull back here somewhere in this area. Remember, it's not a brick wall, it's an area. I'd be watching between about 27.50 to 28.25. We're overbought. Pull back and then a bottoming pattern and a new buy. What would be my first target in Ethereum? 3086. Why? Look at this. Support, spike below, close above support, breakdown. 62.5 and prior support becoming resistance. That would be my first target area on a bounce play. If it closed above there, 34.25 area, 34.27 area. Look at the prior tops right in there and the 75% harmonic. What's my target above there? Should it keep going? Right around the 80, just in front of that 87.5 actually, because it spiked up and didn't quite get there. You can do the same analysis. Again, if you're trading stocks, focus on the weekly and then the daily. If you're trading other things, it's what else have I missed? EMD. EMD. Let me see here. I'm just putting on a couple key levels right around here. All right. Overbought on the weekly cycle tops. I'd be looking for key pullbacks. Again, remember, not trading advice. My first key level would be about $9.90 to $10. I'd start watching for pullbacks, even if it broke below the first area would be about $10. I'd be watching for bounce plays. This isn't yet. It's not a double top yet. If it closed below this, I'd look closer to $9.90. For a pullback, that would be max level. I'd be watching for a pullback into the weekly. Because you got weekly cycle tops, that's why I'd be a bit more patient on some of this. Remember, this market's overstretched. A lot of things are overstretched. Yeah, did you get my Pi network? There's nothing. Back to Pi network. I probably jumped away from that too quick. We don't have any proven strength. It just keeps bleeding lower. Look at the weekly. Look where the 8 EMA is. At least, if you want to be more aggressive, 0.59, 0.6, it'd have to prove strength above there. Or make a bottoming pattern, which we do not have a bottoming pattern yet. That's before I got sidetracked into Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if they're running and this thing can't break out, this has got to prove strength before anything else. I have a feeling you've bought it a lot higher and you're trapped in it, by the way. That's just my gut feeling. I might be wrong. Do I usually just, if I'm scaling in because things are overextended, I will generally go with a max of 2 positions. My first position will be on a daily setup. My next position, if that breaks down below there, I wait for the weekly rotation zone and wait for another setup. If then they, okay, it would be, that's the only way I scale in. I don't scale in beyond 2, but then if it violates my weekly stop, I'm out of the whole thing. All right? You're welcome, Patrick. You have a good weekend, too. Yes, that is your problem. Fine, mistakes are mistakes. The biggest problem is people turn trades into positions. Know where your stop is before you ever get in the trade. Know where it is. If you cannot write down where your stop is, you do not get in the trade. And then if your stop is hit, you're out of the trade no matter what. You're out. If you start practicing that rule, and the stop should be based off of where the trade is invalid, not based off where you want reward to risk to be, what you want to happen. If you can't get reward to risk where the stop needs to be to invalidate the trade, you have no business being in the trade. You have no idea how many trades I pass on because I can't get proper reward to risk ratio. The trade might actually work out fine, but if I couldn't get proper reward to risk ratio, it's a no trade. So if you don't know where the stop is going into the trade, you don't get in the trade. Okay? Still looking for rollovers in Tesla. By the way, let's just peek at the S&P. Going into the open, already tested at 62.5. Again, don't do anything stupid on a Friday. Little spike up with the, what did the tick print? That's a pretty negative opening. So on this bounce, on any bounce, I'd be still watching for rollovers in the S&P, unless it can start getting above 26.92 on a closing basis on the short term. So, I mean, don't worry. Too many people worry about, oh, I missed a trade, I missed a trade, I missed a trade. There's always another trade. Okay? There's always another trade. And again, I'll give you another little tip. When you're looking for momentum, watch for momentum right around the first cross rotation zone. First cross, right around that area, first cross rotation zone, momentum. That's when, yeah, fine. I love momentum then. Other than that, I watch for pullbacks. How many pullbacks did you get into the rotation zone on this move higher? How many pullbacks? Look, even this. Remember, we talked about the capitulation bottom, but even if you were late. Look at this. All right, break above here. Let's even say you were saying, all right, I'm being patient. We need to close above this prior key resistance and above this key high. Close above it. Oh, I missed it. I missed it. I missed it. What did this bar give you? Another entry. What did this pullback give you? First cross rotation zone entry. And then it ran. But I didn't buy here. Okay. But you still manage reward to risk. And if you can't get reward to risk, then you wait for the setup that does. All right. That's all I have to say. Hope this helped people. If it did help, could you please come back to the video and leave some comments for the algorithm? If it did, I'd really appreciate it. Can you take like 2 minutes, please? With that, I will see everybody. Remember, big week next week, CPI, PPI, retail sales, earnings kickoff next week. So, again, because I have potential double tops, let me reiterate. Remember, we've talked about pausing bars. If we get a 1 pause bar and a break above that, it's a breakout play for me. If we trigger the double, it's be patient and wait for the pullback. And I'm more focused on the pullback unless we get something that just breaks higher and this market keeps on in sell vol, buy it all. Thank you, Charles. Hey, Rick, thank you. All right, with that, you might want to go back and watch this video again because there's a lot of little things shared. Let it sink in. Let it sink in and enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to everyone next week. Bye for now.